The sirens began before dawn. By the time Dr. Elena Carter reached the hospital, the horizon was burning an explosion at the coastal refinery, miles away, sending a wave of fire and fear through the city. And in less than an hour, Theo was overflowing. Elena's hands trembled for a second as she pulled her hair into a bun. She had seen disasters before: earthquakes, storms, accidents, but never this many victims at once. The corridors were already painted with soot, blood, and desperation. They called her the calm storm surgeon who never panicked, even when everyone else did. But that morning, something inside her cracked, not fear, something deeper. It was the feeling that today, no matter how hard she fought, she might lose more than she could save. Bodies kept arriving, burned victims, smoke inhalation, broken bones, children with empty eyes. Elena moved from one table to another like a ghost of mercy, her gloves soaked in blood, her eyes scanning for life signs that flickered like weak candles in a hurricane. Next, she said, a boy, maybe 16, burned on his arms, barely breathing. You'll make it, she whispered, pressing the mask on his face. You'll make it, because I need you to. Around her, chaos was turning into rhythm. Nurses and interns began following her lead, sensing like an orchestra of urgency. Every decision was a note, every life saved, a fragile melody. But at 3 p.m., she heard the sound that stopped everything. A stretcher rushed in carrying someone she recognized: Dr. Mason Reed, her mentor. And once, the man she almost married. His uniform was torn, his chest still. Elena. He was trying to rescue people when the second tank exploded, a firefighter muttered, eyes down. Her breath froze. For a second, the world blurred: machines beeping, people shouting, time breaking apart. Then instinct took over. Prepare the defibrillator, she ordered, her voice cracking just slightly. She placed her hands on his chest. Don't you dare leave me now, Mason. Shock. Nothing. Shock again. Still nothing. Dr. Carter, we're out of oxygen tanks, a nurse shouted. Then share between stations. We improvise. No one dies waiting, she answered, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. Minutes passed like hours. Finally a weak, desperate heartbeat. He was alive. Barely. Elena stepped back, trembling. Keep him stable. I have others to save. And she walked out, eyes wet but determined, as another wave of ambulances arrived. That was only the beginning. Before sunset, she would face the hardest choice of her life, one that would make the world call her the miracle doctor, and make her question whether she deserved the name at all. By 4 p.m., the hospital was no longer just a building, it was a battlefield. Every room overflowed with stretchers, the smell of antiseptic mixed with smoke, and the sound of monitors competing with human screams. And in the middle of it all, Dr. Elena Carter had become the heart that refused to stop beating. She hadn't eaten, hadn't sat, hadn't blinked long enough to think. Every life was a coin toss, every decision a moral wound. Patient in trauma bay 3 third-degree burns, 80% body surface. Next, she said, pulling off her gloves and grabbing new ones before they hit the floor. Her mind was a map of triage. Who might survive, who needed her now, and who might not make it. She hated those decisions. But the clock didn't care. The fire outside didn't care. So she became what she needed to be, unbreakable. But then came case 119. A girl, maybe 10 years old, carried in by her older brother. Her face covered in ash, her breathing shallow, her pulse fading. She was with me, the boy sobbed. She wouldn't wake up. Elena's chest tightened. She could see it. Carbon monoxide poisoning, smoke inhalation, severe burns. The ventilators were all in use. There was one machine left, already connected to an unconscious firefighter with almost no chance of recovery. She froze. One ventilator, 2 lives. The boy clutched her arm. Please, doctor, she's all I have. Her voice trembled for the first time that day. I'll do everything I can. In her mind, Mason's weak heartbeat echoed from the ICU, the man she'd just saved, now fighting for his own life. The boy's voice mixed with his memory, creating a storm inside her. Nurse Clara approached softly. Doctor, we can't split the ventilator. You have to choose. Elena turned away for a moment, pressing her hands to her face. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows over her trembling silhouette. When she turned back, her eyes were no longer soft, they were fire. Take the ventilator from Bay 4, she said. The nurse hesitated. That's Mason's room. I know, she whispered. Now move. Her hands didn't shake this time. She intubated the girl, stabilized her vitals, and watched color return to her face. The boy fell to his knees, crying, thanking her between broken breaths. Elena turned away, hiding the tears that finally came. She had saved one more life, and maybe lost another. Outside, the sun began to fall, orange and red, the same colors that had started it all. By nightfall, the news would spread. Reporters, cameras, headlines. They would call her the miracle doctor, but she would remember it only as the day she chose who would live, and who wouldn't. The night fell heavy over the city. The hospital lights flickered like tired stars, and the air smelled of rain and metal. Dr. Elena Carter finally stepped outside for the first time in 16 hours, her scrub stiff, her hands shaking from adrenaline and grief. She sat on the hospital steps, blood dried on her sleeves, the distant sirens echoing in her mind. For the first time all day, there were no orders to give, no lives to save, only silence. And silence, she realized, was louder than screams. A paramedic walked by and stopped. "They're saying you saved 119 people, Doc. You should be proud." Elena didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the last embers of the fire still glowed. "And how many did I lose?" she whispered. He didn't know what to say. No one ever does. She looked down at her hands, steady now, but haunted. Miracle doctor, they called her. Reporters were already gathering outside the gates, cameras flashing like lightning. But Elena couldn't make herself stand. The word miracle felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Because she knew miracles weren't free. "Dr. Carter," a voice came from behind. It was Nurse Clara, her face soft but pale. "Mason's condition, he's not waking up." Elena closed her eyes. The world spun. The choice she made, the ventilator, the girl, came crashing back in full color. She wanted to say she'd do it again. She wanted to believe it. Instead, she whispered, "Keep him comfortable." A drop of rain hit her face, then another. Soon, the sky was weeping with her. The hospital's glass doors slid open again, and the little boy from earlier ran toward her, his sister wrapped in a blanket, alive. "She's okay," he said, breathless. "She asked for you." Elena smiled weakly, tears mixing with the rain. "Tell her, she's stronger than any of us." He hugged her, small arms around her trembling shoulders. "You're our angel," he said softly. That broke her. She held him tight, the rain washing away everything, the blood, the smoke, the name Miracle Doctor. Inside, Mason's heart monitor let out a single, flat tone. Outside, the boys' laughter echoed through the storm. Between those two sounds, death and life, Dr. Elena Carter finally understood what it meant to save people. Not perfection, not glory, just choosing love over fear, again and again, until the last heartbeat. By dawn, the world had already written her story. News anchors called her the miracle doctor. Social media turned her into a symbol of courage. Hashtags, interviews, headlines, her face was everywhere. But inside the hospital, Dr. Elena Carter felt hollow. Every corridor she walked down echoed with applause she didn't want to hear. "You saved more people than anyone in this city's history," they said. But when she looked in the mirror, she saw only Mason's reflection behind her, silent, still, and fading. The administrators wanted her to speak at a press conference. "You're a hero, Elena," said Dr. Vaughn, the hospital director. "The people need hope. You can give them that." She looked at him, eyes red, voice barely a whisper. "Hope is easy when you don't know the cost." That night, the camera lights were blinding. Microphones pressed toward her like weapons. "Dr. Carter, what does it feel like to save 119 lives? Do you believe in miracles?" She hesitated. The crowd held its breath. Then she said softly, "No one saves alone. Miracles don't belong to doctors. They belong to those who keep fighting, even when the world burns." The reporters scribbled, lenses flashing. But none of them heard the tremor in her voice when she added, almost to herself, "Miracles always take something from you." After the conference, she escaped to the ICU. Mason's room was quiet, the machine steady, his face pale but peaceful. She sat beside him, the city's applause still echoing faintly outside. "I made the choice, Mason," she said, her voice breaking. "I saved her, the little girl. I did what you taught me, to choose life, even when it hurts. But why does it feel like I lost everything? The monitor beeped steadily, indifferent. She closed her eyes. If you can hear me, please wake up. I can't carry this name alone. And for a moment, just a moment, she felt a faint pressure against her hand, his fingers, twitching. She gasped, tears filling her eyes. Mason. But then the movement stopped. A false alarm. Just a muscle reflex. Still, she smiled through the tears, because even that tiny flicker, was enough to remind her why she stayed. To believe in life, even when it broke her. Outside, the city lights glowed like small beating hearts in the dark. And though she didn't know it yet, her story was far from over, because one of the lives she saved that day would soon come back to save her. It had been 3 weeks since the fire. The hospital had returned to its usual rhythm, quieter, slower, almost pretending nothing had happened. But Dr. Elena Carter could still hear the sirens every time she closed her eyes. Mason was still in a coma, his heart stable, his mind somewhere between worlds. Elena visited him every morning before rounds. She'd sit beside his bed, speaking softly, as if her words might guide him back. They're calling me a miracle, Mason, but I still don't feel alive. Outside his room, nurses whispered when she passed. Some admired her, others pitied her. None understood the silence that lived behind her smile. One afternoon, as the sunlight filtered through the IQ windows, a nurse approached her with a hesitant smile. Doctor, someone's here to see you. A girl stood in the doorway, fragile, hair short and uneven, holding a small flower wrapped in tissue paper. Elena, the girl whispered. For a second, Elena didn't recognize her. Then she saw the eyes, the same eyes from that day, the child from case 119. The girl smiled faintly. You saved me. Elena knelt down, the room spinning. You made it. The girl nodded. My brother says I should thank you. But I just wanted to tell you something. Elena's voice cracked. What is it, sweetheart? The girl placed her tiny hand over the doctor's heart. He said you gave me your machine, but I think you gave me your heart instead. For the first time in weeks, Elena couldn't hold the tears. She hugged the girl tightly, her stethoscope pressing between them, the sound of two hearts, steady and alive. When the child left, the hospital felt lighter. For hours, Elena walked through the corridors as if the air had changed. Maybe, saving her hadn't been the end of the story. Maybe it was the beginning. That night, she returned to Mason's room. She sat, took his hand, and whispered. She came back. You'd like her. She's brave, like you. The heart monitor beeped, steady as always, until suddenly, it skipped a beat. Elena froze. Mason? The nurse rushed in, eyes wide. Doctor, his brain activity just spiked. Elena stood there, tears filling her eyes. For the first time since the fire, she felt hope. Outside the window, the rain began again, but this time, it didn't sound like sorrow. It sounded like something waking up. The storm had ended by dawn. The hospital, still wrapped in quiet, smelled of rain and antiseptic. Only the faint rhythm of heart monitors broke the silence, and one of them was Mason's. Dr. Elena Carter hadn't slept. She sat beside his bed, her head resting on folded arms, the same way she had for 21 nights. Every morning, she whispered the same words. You can come back now, Mason. You've done enough resting. But this time, something changed. A sound, small, almost imperceptible, a breath that didn't belong to the machines. Elena lifted her head. His fingers moved. Just once, then again. Her heart stopped, then raced all at once. Mason, she whispered, not daring to believe. Slowly, his eyelids fluttered. The light from the window hit his face like sunrise after endless night. His lips parted, dry, uncertain. Elena. The word was barely a whisper, but it shattered her world. She stood, tears already falling. You're here. You're really here. He tried to smile, weakly. You look terrible. She laughed, a broken, beautiful sound she hadn't made in weeks. You've been asleep through my worst days. You have no right to judge. He coughed, eyes glancing toward the monitors. How many did you save? Her voice trembled. 119. He stared at her, the corners of his lips lifting just slightly. That's my Elena. But then, his gaze softened, reading the guilt written in her eyes. And how many did you lose? She froze. The question hit her like a scalpel. Enough, she whispered. Enough to never call it a miracle again. Mason's voice was faint but clear. Then maybe that's why it was one. She took his hand, pressing it to her chest. I almost lost you, too. You didn't, he said weakly. You gave me back something else, your courage. The morning light grew stronger, pouring through the window. In that moment, it wasn't a hospital room anymore. It was a sanctuary of everything human: pain, love, survival. Elena leaned closer, her voice trembling but full. I saved lives that day, but I think you're the one saving mine now. He smiled, fragile, tired but alive. And as their hands intertwined, the monitor beside them beat in perfect rhythm, not just one heartbeat, but two, finding their way back to life together. For a brief time, the hospital lived in light again. Mason was awake, weak but recovering, and Elena finally smiled without forcing it. The story of the miracle doctor had begun to fade from the news. She wanted it gone, wanted to be just a doctor again, not a myth carved from tragedy. But peace in a hospital never lasts long. It was a Thursday afternoon when the alarm screamed again. At first, Elena thought it was a drill. The smell of smoke said otherwise. A short circuit in the east wing, fire spreading through the pediatric ward. Her body moved before her mind did. Evacuate the floor, she shouted. Now. Nurses ran, alarms wailed, parents screamed their children's names. Elena dashed through the hallways, pulling for poles, carrying stretchers, guiding terrified staff through the smoke. She reached the stairwell, blocked by debris. Flames crawled along the walls. Through the chaos, she heard a voice, small, trembling. Dr. Elena, she turned. The little girl she'd saved, case 119, stood frozen at the end of the hall, clutching her teddy bear. Sweetheart, run to me, Elena called out. The child didn't move, paralyzed by fear. Without thinking, Elena sprinted into the smoke. The air burned her lungs, alarms blurred with the crackle of flames. She reached the girl, dropped to her knees, and wrapped her in her coat. Close your eyes, breathe with me, we're getting out of here. Behind her, an explosion, oxygen tanks igniting 1 floor below. The building shook violently. Stairwells gone, shouted a nurse through the haze. We're trapped. Elena scanned the corridor. The only escape was a window, 4th floor. Below, firefighters shouted orders. One of them lifted his helmet, Mason. He wasn't supposed to be on duty yet, but he was there. Elena, he yelled. You have to jump. She hesitated, holding the girl tightly. She's just a child. I'll catch her, he shouted. Trust me. Elena looked into the child's terrified eyes. You ready, love? The girl nodded, trembling. Elena kissed her forehead. You're stronger than you think. Then, she jumped. The girl fell into Mason's arms, safe. The crowd cheered. But as Mason looked back up, the window had already vanished in smoke. Elena, he screamed. For a moment, there was no answer, just fire, just noise. Then, a figure emerged through the smoke, coughing, covered in ash. Mason's knees buckled in relief. He ran toward the paramedics carrying her out, her face burned, eyes half open but alive. She managed a faint smile. You couldn't stay in bed, could you? He laughed through tears. Not when you're saving the world again. As oxygen masks were placed over their faces, their hands found each other, shaking, burned, but together. And amid the sirens and chaos, the girl's small voice echoed. She saved us again. Outside, the world called her the miracle doctor, but inside those walls, she was just Elena, the doctor who stayed. Elena closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She thought of that first day, the sky on fire, the noise, the fear. And she realized something simple, something she had never dared to believe before. Saving lives isn't about being perfect. It's about never giving up on people, even when the world gives up on you. Mason recovered faster than anyone expected. Every day, he'd walk into her office with 2 coffees and a smile that said, I'm still watching you, doctor. They didn't talk about the fire much anymore. They didn't need to. Their silence had become a language, one of gratitude, love, and survival. The little girl, Amelia, case 119, visited every Thursday, her hair growing back, her laughter echoing through the pediatric wing that now bore a new name, the Carter Reed Children's Unit. Elena pretended to hate the name, but secretly, she loved it. It took months for the hospital to rebuild, walls repainted, windows replaced, corridors silent again. But some scars never fade, and not all of them live on the skin. Outside, Amelia ran down the hall with a red balloon tied to her wrist. Mason followed behind, calling her name, laughing. For a moment, everything felt almost normal, fragile, but real. One evening, after a long shift, she stood by the window of the new wing. The sunset spilled gold across the city, the same color as the day it all began. Dr. Elena Carter returned to work with her left arm bandaged and her face marked by faint burns that caught the light when she turned her head. She didn't hide them. She wore them like truth, proof that even miracles bleed. She reached for her stethoscope one last time that night, looping it around her neck as she whispered, "This is my last shift of the day, and my first one as myself again." As she stepped out of the room, the camera would follow her down the glowing corridor, the hum of hospital lights, the faint sound of laughter behind her, the slow fade of heart monitors sensing into rhythm.